To formally open the conference, I am delighted to introduce the chair of the board of directors for ARNEC. He was formerly chief of UNICEF's Global Education Program in New York and director of UNESCO's Asia and Pacific Regional Bureau for Education. He has taught, done research, and worked in development programs in Southeast Asia for over 50 years. Ladies and gentlemen, for the opening remarks, Dr. Sheldon Shaeffer.
Honourable ministers from Cambodia and Bangladesh, distinguished representatives of UNICEF and UNESCO, conference participants. Welcome to the 11th ARNEC Regional Conference. With a special welcome to the keynote speakers today, James Cairns from Harvard University and Dr. Irina Dia from UNICEF. Let me begin with an analogy. Young children in the Asia-Pacific region face serious risks to their well-being and development as a result of what I would call a perfect storm, defined as a seriously critical state of affairs arising from a range of negative and unpredictable factors. In this case, COVID-19, climate change, and environmental degradation. Considered individually, each of these crises is serious enough. Taken together, they become a perfect storm of challenges to the well-being of young children around the world. In such a context, this conference is premised on the following assumptions. First, these three crises are reversing the gains of the Sustainable Development Goals for early childhood development and harming the enabling environments needed by young children to thrive and to live in dignity. Second, these crises also widen conditions of inequality among young children and their families in regard to their access to quality nurturing care and early childhood development services, especially as a result of increasing poverty and stress and mental health issues and greater exposure to risks in the environment that affect a child's overall well-being. Vulnerable children and their families disadvantaged before the impacts of these crises become obvious will become more disadvantaged as these crises unfold. Third, investing in young children remains a sound strategy for overall social resilience and sustainable human development. Targeted and sustained ECCD investments provide high returns in terms of creating a healthy and productive workforce, responsible citizens who value peace and inclusive communities, stewards of clean, safe, and sustainable environments, and enablers of productivity and innovation. So first, COVID-19. UNESCO has estimated that 1.5 billion learners were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic arising from the unprecedented closure of early childhood development programs in schools around the world. As a result, many young children became entirely dependent on their caregivers for providing nurturing care and for addressing their developmental and learning needs. But then these caregivers were also burdened by the loss of income and assets and increased stress, both of which seriously affected their capacity to provide the needed nurturing care. Many families also have less money to spend on basic needs, such as food and healthcare, leading, for example, to what UNICEF says will be about 13.6 million children suffering from wasting by the end of this year. And half of the children affected globally are found in South Asia. But the impact of the pandemic has not been limited to children and families. Many early childhood development centers, often supported by family and community contributions, closed, some perhaps never to reopen. And many of their staff left the profession, some again perhaps never to return. Second, climate change. We know that climate change is widespread, rapid, and intensifying, with UNICEF estimating that about 1 billion children, nearly half of the children in the world, live in extremely high-risk countries, and are now suffering and will suffer more from the impacts of climate change, crop failures, food insecurity, hurricanes and floods, heat waves, droughts and wildfires, and rising sea levels. Save the Children says that children born in the past year will face on average 2 to 7 times more extreme weather events than their grandparents did, which will put at risk their rights to a safe home, a healthy environment, good health care, adequate food, and quality learning. Unfortunately, the Asia-Pacific region is especially vulnerable to the adverse impacts of climate change. Over 40% of the people living in areas of high or extremely high drought severity are in Asia. More than 500 million children live in extremely high flood occurrence zones, with the vast majority of them living in Asia. And 90% of Pacific Islanders live within 5 kilometers of the Pacific Ocean, and therefore are impacted by ocean warming, rising sea levels, and more frequent marine heat waves that affect both ocean ecosystems and the people that rely on them. Third, the degradation of the environment. The tragic irony is that young children, who are least responsible for environmental degradation and have the fewest resources and lowest capacity to respond to its challenges, must bear the brunt of health and development-related environmental impacts. Indoor and outdoor air pollution, exposure to harmful toxins such as mercury and lead, and the lack of clean and protective play spaces for young children all disrupt development and learning processes. According to the United Nations Environment Program in Asia Pacific, air pollution is responsible for more than 6.5 million deaths annually, the bulk of which, 70%, occurs in Asia and the Pacific. And the World Health Organization has said that young children's exposure to pollution results in an especially higher risk of respiratory and infectious disease and developmental delays and disabilities that can reduce an individual's long-term cognitive, social, emotional, and physical potential. In closing, it is ARNEC's hope that this conference, with the range of expertise found in its plenary presentations and the range of experience which all of you attending will bring to it, will contribute first to creating a better understanding of the perfect storm that is facing the children of this region and of ways to mitigate the impacts of these crises, but also second, to finding hope for the future in the promising policies and practices that are being designed and implemented to meet the complex challenges these crises are creating. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shaeffer, for putting the conference in perspective with the pressing challenges and needs of our young children. Our next speaker has more than 24 years of experience with UNICEF in development programs and humanitarian support in Eastern and Southern Africa, Southeast Asia, and Pacific regions. Apart from working with the UNICEF regional offices in Bangkok and Kathmandu, he has worked in UNICEF country offices in Myanmar, Tanzania, Namibia, Laos. He has also worked with the international NGO Save the Children and Médecins du Monde, focusing on health and HIV programs. He holds a master's degree in public health from the Nuffield Institute of Leeds University in the UK, and a Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery from Institute of Medicine 1 in Yangon, Myanmar. Please welcome the Deputy Regional Director at the UNICEF East Asia and Pacific Regional Office, Dr. Myo-Zin Nyunt.
Thank you very much, Leah. Honourable Ministers, distinguished participants, Dr. Sheldon Shaeffer from ARNEC, Mr. Nyunt from UNESCO, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. It is a great honor to be part of this important conference led by our key partner, ARNEC, bringing together various sectors and institutions that deeply care for young children. Young children of Asia and the Pacific, including their caregivers today, are suffering from the impact of crises, compounding challenges from the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, and environmental degradation. This year's conference theme is very timely, and it is an urgent topic of great concern for the ECD community globally. Today, we all come together to advance the ECD agenda and to bring a high level of awareness among policymakers, practitioners, on the substantial threats young children are facing due to these multiple crises. Together, we can collectively work on urgent recovery and also create a better future for all young children and their families. Firstly, I want to talk a bit about the pandemic that has affected the development and well-being of our young children, preventing them from reaching their developmental and learning potentials. Across countries in Asia and the Pacific, where UNICEF is working, we have witnessed many challenges in access to life-saving and much-needed services such as health, nutrition, education, water sanitation, child protection, etc., while child care, early learning centers, and preschool closed due to pandemic. The pandemic has disrupted the delivery of essential ECD programs and services across sectors, impacting the 5 nurturing care components of ECD, namely health, nutrition, security and safety, responsive caregiving, and early learning. Furthermore, the threat of financial constraints and fiscal austerity with the budget cuts on ECD is becoming more severe day by day. This will have implications for the equitable implementation of essential ECD services across key sectors, and also alarming reversal of positive gains that we achieved in the recent decades on ECD. Secondly, I want to talk a bit about climate change and environmental degradation, which are major issues that our young children and their families are already facing now rather than in a distant future. A climate change and environmental shock increases the stability and predictability needed in a child's life for a nurturing environment can be very much disrupted, especially in their first 1,000 days of life. As mentioned by Dr. Sheldon Shaeffer in our publication of Child Climate Risk Index, we're talking about nearly a billion people, nearly half of the world's children live in countries with extremely high risk to the impacts of climate change. The unfolding climate crisis and environmental degradation is also a child rights crisis that disproportionately affects young people in this region, starting in utero, physiologically and psychologically. Nurturing care components, among them, children may be at greater risk of hunger and nutrition. Children's education and learning opportunity may be threatened. Children are more likely to suffer from severe humanitarian consequences such as homelessness, poverty, family separation, migration, displacement, you name a bit more. And they could face greater pressures arising from scarcity of food, challenges in livelihood and income. Climate shocks can also weaken the social safety nets of families and expose children to greater risk of exploitation and abuse. As threat multipliers such as COVID-19, climate change, and environmental degradation are increasing the vulnerabilities of young children and families in the region. Put together, these challenges impose social and economic implications on human development, including poverty, inequality, peace and security, which require multi-sectoral response. Given all these complex challenges, addressing those require strong partnership and strategic actions with a range of stakeholders across sectors if we are to make lasting changes for the children. Despite all these challenges, we are already seeing some promising country-driven solutions and multi-level actions in the region and the worldwide. I want to share a few examples in the region. In Mongolia, the government, in partnership with UNICEF, bringing sustainable energy solutions to kindergartens to protect young children from severe air pollution. In Vietnam, the government is engaged to develop and institutionalize a national climate-smart school framework for the pre-primary onwards to enable a clean and safe environment for children. Across many countries in the region, such as China, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, and so on, We are undertaking climate landscape analysis for children to explore the impacts of climate change on children. Also, there are youth-led initiatives in the Pacific, such as youth climate activists are reinforcing at the policy forums for the urgent need to increase resilience and response to climate change in ECD. In Vietnam and Mongolia, air pollution youth mappers are producing community maps to address the adverse effect of air pollution on young children in the community. These are a few examples, and I'm sure colleagues will be talking about the country examples in the coming days. These are extraordinary and unprecedented times. So let me assure you that UNICEF is committed through our collaboration with the government ministries, ARNEC, Save the Children, UNESCO, and many key partners in the region to strengthen COVID recovery efforts while making critical linkages between ECD, climate change, and the environment. Increasing the resilience and adaptation capacities of ECD programming are indeed a long-term role to reach the SDGs. Additionally, we will continue to ensure that climate policymakers are aware of the risk climate change and environmental degradation represent to the youngest children below primary age group. That the inclusion of ECD to climate policy, financing, programming should be the priority. We should not see children as only the victims of the climate change and environmental degradation, but the ones who should first be equipped to gain resilience and adapt necessary behavior, attitudes, and actions in view of foundational, large-scale, and systemic change. A big thank you to all for being committed and being champions of ECD. From UNICEF, you can count on us to work with all of you so that every child and their families in Asia and the Pacific can benefit from climate-proof and environmental resilient nurturing care and right to clean, safe, and secure enabling environments which are foundational for children to develop to their fullest potential. Finally, let us continue to advance ECD policies and programs to give our young children a strong start in life so that they survive, thrive, and live in dignity to be empowered to achieve their full potential. Working together towards a well-financed, equitable, high-quality ECD is a prerequisite to secure a better future for young children and the betterment of the entire society. I wish you all a successful meeting and thank you all for your continued support to ECD.
Thank you, Dr. Nyunt. Indeed, we face extraordinary and unprecedented times, and we're so glad that you and your teams at UNICEF are working together with our partners to make lasting changes for our young children. Our next speaker has more than 20 years of experience in education, planning, and statistics at UNESCO field and regional offices, including HQ and Institute, leading and implementing education programs and projects in more than 50 countries in Asia and the Pacific, Africa, and Arab states. He's currently the program specialist for education planning and management, as well as the acting chief of the Inclusive Quality Education section at the UNESCO Bangkok Regional Bureau for Education. Prior to this, he served as chief of education team at UNESCO Islamabad. Please welcome Mr. Thaung.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Leah. Good morning, honorable ministers, Dr. Sheldon Shaeffer, Dr. Myo-Zin, dear colleagues, participants, and guests. On behalf of my director, Shiguru Aoyagi, and UNESCO, please allow me to begin by extending my gratitude to the ARNEC for inviting UNESCO to participate in this Asia-Pacific Regional Conference on Early Childhood Developments. As we know, early childhood is the critical period for the development, which has a long-term impact on later stage of the individual life. Over 80% of the children's brain is developed before the age of 3. Without the support of stimulating and enabling environment, and without freedom from adversity, such as poverty, hunger, violence, exploitation, abuse, and even emerging threat brought on by climate change, my colleague Sheldon and Dr. New has alluded, the growth, physiology, and behavior of child are seriously affected, leading to potential issue in learning and development, emotional adjustment, and the behavior in later years. According to such challenges, early child care and education, ECCE, is among the most underfunded sector and now diminishment in financial resources due to COVID-19 pandemic, and it has been having the direct impact on the provision of integrated ECCE service like health, nutrition, and education. So the benefit of early child programs are not limited to the individual. Evidence shows that investment in early year is a cornerstone for human capital and contributes significantly to sustainable economics and social developments. To address this growing challenge of environmental crisis, poverty and inequality, and the domestic and armed conflicts, a transformative approach to early child development are now overdue. There has been a significant movement over the last 30 years to improve the life of young children, making ECC as a key focus area in the range of commitment begin early on with the 1989 United Nations Convention on the Right of the Children. We call it UNCRC. To fulfill the commitment to a UNCRC, member states have expanded access to ECC service to ensure the right to the development. In our Eastern Asia, the growth enrollment increased from 79% to 88%, followed by the Oceania, where the figure increased from 71% to 76%. Acknowledging that ECCE represent a critical period for education, 18 out of the 46 Asia Pacific member states provide free pre-primary education, which we should be proud of that. 7 countries of which stipulate that pre-primary education be compulsory. According to our UNESCO US data, however, only 2/3 of the children between the age of 36 to 59 months are developmentally on track in South Asia. Notably, the effect of the disruption to education and ECC service due to the COVID-19 pandemic over the past 2 years have been especially profound on the world's younger children. Indeed, approximately 10.75 million children globally fell off track in their early child development due to the expressively to this pandemic. At UNESCO, we continue to support member states' effort to achieve SDG 4.2, which call for ensuring that all girls and boys have access to quality early child development, care, and pre-primary education so that they are ready for the primary education and would beyond. Now, it is a time for determining to key opportunity and address challenge that are enabling and hindering for ECCE progress across country in the region. It is also time to mobilize greater political ambition and commitment to attain SDG 4.2 and to set up practical and actionable strategy, such as reform in financing, policy and governance, along with the adopting the solution for accelerated the learning initiative to address learning gaps. Later this year, come November, the 22nd World Conference on Early Child Care and Education, we call it WCECCE, will be graciously hosted by the government of Uzbekistan, which will present an excellent opportunity for our member state to reaffirm the right for every young child to quality care and education from birth and to renew state commitment toward the achieving SDG 4.2. At the end of the ARNEC conference on 8 July, the Asia Pacific Regional Consultation will be held for civil society organizations and key ECC stakeholders. This is the second regional consultation meeting organized to kick off the preparation process, chiefly by engaging all the stakeholders and working together in setting up our priority on ECC in the lead up to the second WCEEC, the subsequent adoption of the Tashkent framework for the action for ECC. So and also the 2022 Bangkok statement that issued from the recent upgrades too held in June indicate that transform education require a holistic life cycle approach to learning and scaling, from early child care and education on through to higher and adult education. So this Bangkok statements recognize the importance of further investing in ECC and strengthening adolescent learning and youth skill development, which focus on 21st century digital employability and life skill aligned with the need for the evolving labor markets and emerging green and blue economies. under the theme of Young Children in Crisis, addressing impact for COVID-19, climate change, and our other environmental issue. Today's conference arrived at a timely moment. Together, we can now reimagine and transform ECCD to be more equitable and inclusive, with a strong, effective workforce and one that is resilient and innovative. This is our opportunity to address existing challenge within the education system, thereby allowing our member state to rebuild most effectively based not only on the addressing the negative impact of the pandemic, but also on issues related to education system, which has persisted over the many years. So once again, I would like to thank ARNEC to organizing this such important conference. And we, UNESCO, look forward to hearing the expertise and contribution from this distinct speaker and learning from the insightful discussion in the coming day. Once again, thank you very much. Lina, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Thaung, for joining us this morning with your rousing message. At this point, I'd like to request Ms. Sarah Dang, the chair of ARNEC's Executive Committee, to introduce our next esteemed speakers.
Thank you, Elia, for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today. I have the honor of introducing our next speaker, His Excellency Dr. Hang Chuon Naron, the Minister of Education, Youth and Sports, and Chairman of the National Committee for Early Childhood Care and Development, a think tank of the Royal Government of Cambodia. Dr. Hang has several degrees, including a PhD in International Economics from the Moscow State University of International Relations, and a PhD in Education Administration from Chulalongkorn University, Thailand. Dr. Hang has worked in various diplomatic missions and research institutions as a political and economic analyst. He also held a position of permanent secretary at the Ministry of Economy and Finance from 2004 to 2010. He represented Cambodia at the ASEAN and ASEAN +3 Finance and Central Bank Deputies meeting. His Excellency represented Cambodia at the meeting of G20 finance ministers and central bank governors during Cambodian chairmanship of ASEAN in 2012. He also coordinated the policy dialogues between the Cambodian Ministry of Economy and Finance and the Asian Development Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. He is an author of a number of government policy papers and books on Cambodian economy, public finance, international law, and education. Your Excellency, we are looking forward to your presentation and your experience on how we can address the needs of young children in the emerging context of COVID-19, climate change, and environmental degradation. Thank you.
Dr. Sheldon Shaeffer, Chair, Board of Directors, ARNEC. Ms. Deborah Comini, Regional Director for UNICEF, East Asia and Pacific. Mr. Sheguru Aoyagi, Regional Director, UNESCO Bangkok, Asia and Pacific Regional Bureau for Education. Excellencies, Minister, Vice Ministers, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the Asia Pacific Regional Network for Early Childhood, ARNEC, UNICEF and UNESCO Bangkok for inviting me to the 2022 Asia Pacific Regional Conference on Early Childhood Development under the theme Young Children in Crisis, addressing the impact of COVID-19, climate change and environmental degradation. The significant impact of COVID-19 pandemic has threatened the progress on EC targets of the SDGs, which adversely affects our young children who have already been at a disadvantage even before the pandemic. I think during and beyond the COVID-19, investment in children living and learning will not be the same. We must continue to be vigilant and continue to work together to share experiences in order to continue the education for our children. Given the uncertainty surrounding the pandemic and beyond, it is crucial for the education system, including schools, communities, families, to ensure rapid response efforts are underpinned by a mid and long-term multi-risk and sustainability-oriented approach in a strong and resilient manner. Like other countries, our priorities are to ensure safety for our students and our teachers and to provide continued learning. We need to develop an approach to address the gap and ensure quality early childhood education for all children, leaving no child behind. We need to ensure that early childhood care and education, early childhood development, and early childhood investment services are fully inclusive, accessible, affordable, gender sensitive, and equitable for all children. Implementing effective ECCE, ECD, and ECI policies and services enable countries to protect and ensure the rights of every child. It also maximizes the return on investment in child and family development, transforms society, and builds better communities. Taking this opportunity, I would like to recall the Global Partnership Strategy for Early Childhood, which is adopted by the UNESCO, reiterating the importance of countries' effort toward early childhood activities and commitments to implement. First, harness evidence for action and drives. Second, leverage data monitoring and evaluation for accountability. 3, promote countries' effort to scale up access, inclusion, equity, and quality. 4, assist countries to strengthen policy, governance, financing, and advocacy. 5, galvanize international and national coordination and cooperation. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in this regard, I would like to take this opportunity to inform that the response to the above situation, Cambodia has prioritized ECCD area into the policy and action plan such as: firstly, build the early childhood system by acknowledging the importance of introducing nurturing care framework for ECD. Early interventions matter, including emphasis on parental education for children from pre-conception to year 0 to 3. State preschools, community preschools, and home-based ECCD programs to ensure inclusive access. Secondly, attention is given to teachers by training qualified preschool teachers and community preschool teachers. Thirdly, multi-dimensional intervention by coordinating with other line ministries to improve nutrition, safety, protection of children from infections, ensure their good health, and nurture parenting in early years. Attention will be given to wash and sanitation in schools, iodine, and change of habits of the population. A holistic approach is instrumental in fostering both cognitive and non-cognitive potential for our youngest children. Food supplements such as nutritious snacks, fortified rice, and coordinated implementation, the health, nutrition, education, housing, child protection, immigrant children, indigenous children, and communities and health and welfare children. Fourthly, educated parents can have a transformative power by providing skills and knowledge to parents on nutrition services, early childhood care, and health care services at local level, by educating our population on the importance of early childhood education. Fifthly, we must strengthen ECCD planning, monitoring, and evaluation system by using resolve framework, focusing on all inputs, output, and impact indicators for SDGs. Once again, I would like to take this opportunity to call for collective country action to successfully implement those work plans. We also need to prioritize our education policy to increase investment on ECE, to successfully harness support to develop well-designed ECCD, ECD policies and programs in member states. The compounding and ever more apparent impacts of these three crises, the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, and environmental degradation on young children, highlights the importance of strengthening not only individual ECD programs and practices, but also ECD system to be able to be more resilient and adaptable to the crisis. At the same time, the physical space for post-COVID-19 recovery also tightened. We need to prioritize and protect ECD investments. To conclude, I wish all the fruitful discussion and wish you all good health and stay safe. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for those insightful words and for raising the urgency of addressing the needs of young children in the context of these three crises. You've provided us with important priorities for us to explore further to ensure quality ECCD for all children, leaving no child behind, through inclusive and multidimensional policies, systems, and programs. I now have the honor of introducing Her Excellency Mrs.Fazilatun Nessa Indira, MP, Honourable State Minister at the Ministry of Women and Children Affairs in Bangladesh. She belongs to a martyr family as her brother sacrificed his life on the battlefield during the Liberation War on 7 December 1971. Her Excellency obtained her MSS in Economics and Political Science from Dhaka University and her MSc in Medical Demography. She also has a postgraduate degree in Population Research from London University. Ms. Fazilatun Nessa Indira has held some very important positions. Among them, she served as Member of Parliament of Bangladesh Jatiya Sangsha National Parliament 3 times. She was chair of the Ministry of Women and Children Affairs Parliamentary Standing Committee. Her Excellency is a researcher by profession. She has written more than 55 scientific research papers on health, education, reproductive health, adolescence, child marriage, nutrition, and children and maternal health issues. Your Excellency, we're looking forward to your insights on how we can work together to protect young children's learning and development, especially in the context of these three crises. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. I would like to thank ARNEC for organizing this conference. At the outset, I pay my deepest tribute to our great leader, father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who ensured equal rights of women and children in our constitution. He formulated Children's Rights Act in 1974. A large number of parents have lost their job and income due to lockdown, social distancing, and shut down market, shopping malls, and other service sectors. In addition, disruption of education, children are exposed to exploitation, harassment, inequalities, violence, mental problem, and child marriage of girls. Worldwide, around 1.5 billion and 420 million South Asia children have affected due to closing school. About 1 million children, or nearly half of the world's children, live in extremely high-risk countries and suffer from the impact of climate change. The impact of changing climate poses greater risks for South Asia Pacific region and vulnerable children and their families. According to Global Climate Risk Index 2021, we ranked 7th, although our contribution to global emission is less than 0.47%, and children are more victims of this climate change. Madam Chair, environmental pollution causes health hazards to children and their early and young ages and exposed to high risks of diseases. Child rights related policies and laws are in Bangladesh: National Children Policy 2011, Children Act 2013, Child Marriage Restraint Act 2007, Bangladesh Children Academy Act 2018, Daycare Center Act 2021, Child-Centric Budget. ECCD related policies and programs are Comprehensive Early Childhood Care and Development Policy 2013, Operational Plan of Action of the Comprehensive ECCD 2017, ECCD included in the curriculum of undergraduate and postgraduate medical education and nursing colleges. Programs are Mother and Child Benefit Program, 6-month maternity leave with full pay, Daycare Center for Children of Working Women, Parenting Education Program, School Feeding Program, and Female Stipend Program. Our government is committed to achieve the SDG 4 on education and its sub-goal 4.2 early childhood development. We have achieved gender equality in primary and secondary level of education. Bangladesh achieved MDGs for reduction of child mortality and equitable universal access to primary education, which achieved 100% enrollment rate. Our Honourable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina received SDG Progress Award and Vaccine Hero Award. Bangladesh Children Academy under Ministry of Women and Children Affairs is implementing integrated community-based center for child care, protection, and safe facilities project. Because of COVID-19, all educational institutions are closed, but online classes are open. Stipend for students are continued. MOCA established a national and regional trauma counseling center for women, girls, and children. COVID vaccine coverage rate is 95% for targeted population and started administering COVID vaccine to school-going education 5 to 12 years. Madam Chair, we have adopted Bangladesh Climate Change and Gender Action Plan back in 2013. Other plans including Delta Plan 2100, Mujib Climate Prosperity Plan, and Disaster Risk Reduction Plan. Our National Women Development Policy 2011, currently 5 billion young volunteers, including 38,000 women are working for cyclone preparedness program. We are implementing gender responsive coastal adaptation project to enhance adaptive capacities of women, reduce impact of salinity on livelihood, and ensure water supply. Environmental related policies and acts are National Environment Policy 2017, the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan 2016 to 21, the Environmental Conservation Act 1995, the Environmental Court Act 2010, the Forest Act 27, and others. Program related to environmental pollution are our government implementing different programs for reducing hazardous chemicals, air, water, and soil pollution and contamination. We also ensure open space and playground for children, play, and recreation in residential area, educational institutions, hospitals, and offices are declared as silent zone to protect from air and sound pollution. Implemented integrated and participatory program to control noise pollution to create awareness about noise pollution. Our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina received the Champion of Earth and Daughter of Earth Award. Honorable Chair, comprehensive ECCD policy in Bangladesh supports public-private partnership, promoting corporate social responsibility and harnessing contribution of communities. This situation, along with effective implementation of comprehensive ECCD policy, will improve the resource prospect for ECCD in Bangladesh. Government of Bangladesh always maintain a close relation and coordination with national, regional, and international agencies, network alliance. Climate-related investment projects should be children-friendly. Most importantly, we need sincere commitment, urgent action to reduce emissions for sustainable world for children. Thank you very much for patience. Joy Bangla, Joy Honourable.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for sharing your expertise and advice, and for highlighting the impact of COVID-19, climate change, and environmental degradation on young children, but also for sharing the work that the government of Bangladesh has made on the SDGs, on gender equality, on protecting the environment. It's really important for us to adopt a holistic approach and to be inspired by the partnerships that we've been able to establish in your work. I hope we'll be able to build on these ideas over the course of the next few days together.